the NBA trade deadline was yesterday. How about the Cavs? They basically brought in a new team. I saw somebody tweet, Pete, yesterday that it was like the Scrabble episode where you put all the pieces in the bag and then take out 7 new pieces.
Shake them up, pull out who you get.
All right, let's see what it all means. The NBA trade deadline, a recap with Mitch Lawrence, SiriusXM NBA Radio. He wrote this piece at Forbes that talks about the potential future of LeBron James and what this trade deadline means for his future. And he joins us now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Mitch, welcome back.
Mike and Pete, how are you guys doing? You guys are had a nice little football win last Sunday, huh?
Yeah, I think, Pete, you were there, right?
I was in Minneapolis, Mitch, and I'll tell you what, just smiles on the. It was like so cold. It was Nordic cold.
Well,
they called it.
I went to Temple a long time ago, and I was down there in the 70s, and I know a lot of people in Philadelphia who had not experienced any kind of football joy since 1960, when basically people were just growing up. So it's really nice to see a new team, exciting game, trick play. And the Super Bowl win for the Eagles, I felt very good and happy for everybody down there in Philly because it's been long overdue.
I like to hear you say that. And I'm a Temple alum myself, Mitch. So
there you go.
Yes, us Owls are everywhere.
Yep.
Well,
so, the NBA trade deadline was you guys are right. I mean, Cleveland just basically blew up their team, which you never really see. A team that on paper going into the year, everybody was thinking, well, you know what, they can go back to the NBA Finals. You never see them make wholesale changes, but they had to because the Isaiah Thomas thing had run its course on and off the court. It was a total disaster with him. I never liked the trade from the start. I thought the Boston got the much better, younger, bigger player, a late game, one of the great late game players in the game today in Kyrie Irving. And, Isaiah Thomas really struggled in the 15 games that he played. They were sub 500. And then all of his, he's a guy, he's kind of a bomb thrower when it comes to making comments. So he never reins it in. He went after Kevin Love. He went after Ty Lue. There's supposed to be only one voice on the Cavs, and that's LeBron James's. So I'm sure it kind of rubbed him the wrong way, LeBron. So they had to make a lot of changes, and they did. Whether it leads to them getting back to the finals, who knows?
So what were they trying to accomplish with the trades yesterday?
Well, they had to get out. They had to get rid of Isaiah Thomas. They had to get younger in some ways. They had to get a little more athletic on the perimeter, and they did that getting Larry Nance Jr. A lot of it was getting rid of some of the guys like Dwayne Wade, who wasn't giving them anything really. Derrick Rose. We talk about Isaiah Thomas, who just didn't have it. Channing Frye is a contract that they wanted to, they wanted to use to bring in a guy like a Jordan Clarkson. So you could see the mindset was, let's try to make another run at it, but let's revamp our team, maybe get better on the perimeter where they were old, unathletic, slow, whatever you want to add, and, bring in a guy like a George Hill who's a veteran, who's a solid locker room guy, who, he's the total opposite of Isaiah Thomas when it comes to dealing with the media. And basically maybe also give LeBron a reason to stay. Now, that's always the ultimate goal in Cleveland when they make any moves, is always looking for how will this affect LeBron James' decision whether he wants to stay with us or leave. And the way the team was going, 7-13 since Christmas, they had to make those changes. But it's also obviously with the eye to the future of LeBron. And who knows if LeBron is going to look at this and say, yeah, I'll stay for another year or get me out of here. I'm going to leave because, as I wrote in Forbes in my piece, the Cavaliers basically aided and abetted the Lakers, who obviously are, trying to target guys like LeBron and Paul George, help them by sending out the expiring contract of Isaiah Thomas and Channing Frye. This is going to help the Lakers get way under the salary cap so they could offer the 2 max contracts. And, the Lakers had sent out signals in the last couple of weeks. You guys were probably just, consumed with the Eagles, but the Lakers had sent out this whole thing about apparently, we might not be able to get under the cap. We might have to aim for 2019. Well, now they can have a meeting with LeBron James on July 1st because they've got the salary cap space. If you don't have salary cap space, free agents are going to meet with you, but now they have that ability to do that. So it's going to be a crazy time around July 1st.
Yeah, the one thing is everybody just pencils Cleveland in because of LeBron, but do these trades move them up or down, or are they still kind of in the same spot? And where is that spot?
Well, first of all, they didn't get a second star for LeBron. That's going to be Kevin Love when he comes back, and he's going to be miscast. I mean, they never the problem is that this Kyrie Irving trade is going to haunt them, among other things that'll haunt them, like the contracts of J.R. Smith and Tristan Thompson. But in particular, they had a championship caliber team that had won a title with LeBron as the first star, Kyrie Irving as the second star, Kevin Love as the third star. And it worked fine. And it got them to 3 straight finals. They got beat by a superior team, obviously, with Kevin Durant and Steph Curry last year. Well, by trading Kyrie, they thought Isaiah Thomas could assume that role. They haven't replaced him now. George Hill doesn't. Jordan Clarkson doesn't. Larry Nance Jr. doesn't. Rodney Hood doesn't. So they have weakened themselves. So, yes, this is a situation where I want to see how it plays out. You have no idea how all these different pieces will max and it will mesh and fit. But it looks like this could be a year where Toronto or probably Boston finds itself in the finals.
And Mitch, one thing you write about is that it's not like anybody can accuse Cavaliers owner Dan Gilbert of not trying to keep LeBron happy. There's been a lot of stories about the friction between him and LeBron James, but Dan Gilbert's spending money.
Well, he spends the money. Now, what got LeBron upset apparently was, and got, this whole thing with Paul George, apparently they had some sort of deal worked out before he went to Oklahoma City where the Cavaliers agreed to bring in Paul George. I don't know what the exact particulars. It might have been a 3-way with Phoenix. But anyway, Paul George was going to be a Cavalier, and then Dan Gilbert apparently went to LeBron and said, we can do this, but I got to know if you're in this for, if you're going to commit to us long term. LeBron wouldn't do that. So there could be friction from Gilbert going the other way also. But Gilbert does spend money. The trades he made yesterday adds to the luxury tax bill. Last year they spent about $160 million on salaries and luxury tax stuff. Now, Dan Gilbert also, although they lost money last year, I'm sure in toto they're making a lot of money with LeBron James there. But last year they were the only team in the league, guys, according to Forbes, to lose money. They lost about $6 million last year. I don't know how that happened, but they did it.
Yeah.
Mitch, can the Cavs then be a player with any of the buyout players?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see about that. There are a lot of guys who are up for buyouts. You hear about guys like Vince Carter, who I don't think they should, that's an older guy. Marco Bellinelli is a guy who's going to be pursued by teams. I don't know if Avery Bradley is or isn't, but a team like Oklahoma City, which suffered a big loss when Andre Roberson, probably their best perimeter defender, went down, they need somebody like that. So you're always, this is the time of year or after the trade deadline where you're going to see guys' names come up. It's usually the older players, guys who want to move around. One candidate who won't be is Dwayne Wade, who went back in the trade yesterday to Miami. He obviously is going to stay down there. But, yeah, you'll see what happens with all that stuff.
Mitch Lawrence, SiriusXM, NBA Radio, Forbes.com, his piece on LeBron James and the trade deadline and what this means for the free agent time. But there was a lot of trades yesterday. The trade deadline got moved up by a couple of weeks here. So who did you leave yesterday saying this team is now more interesting today than they were yesterday?
Nobody. It didn't. There were a lot of trades, but they didn't really move the needle for me. I mean, the Lakers and Cavaliers were obviously the big ones. And then you go back, I don't think we talked about the Detroit trade, which has been working great with Blake Griffin. We'll see how far that takes them. That really was an amazing deal when you consider, here the Clippers had a big, Blake Griffin is always hurt. We all know that. This is the 5th year out of the last 8 where he's not going to have a full season. And so right away, they just re-signed him to this huge deal in the offseason, $175 million.
Right. They
move him to Detroit, and Detroit's desperate. They're desperate because they were in a big losing streak. Stan Van Gundy was feeling the heat. They're also guys, I don't know if you've caught any of their games out there on TV. There aren't just seats and rows. There are sections of empty seats when you watch those games. So they had to make a move, and it's hard for a place like Detroit to get stars to come as free agents. The drafting record also has not been good. So they decided, you know what, we can get a guy like Blake Griffin who's available. Okay, he's risky, but we'll roll the dice a little bit. And so far it's worked out great. They're probably going to make the playoffs, it looks like. Their offense is more diversified. You bring in a star quality player at the offensive end. He draws a lot of attention, opens it up for other guys. Are they drawing more people? We'll see about that. I don't know. Their big problem is their fan base is 30 miles to the north, up where they played at Auburn Hills, and those people aren't coming into downtown, and the people around downtown, they can't afford these tickets, so we'll see how that plays out. But it looks like Detroit could be a playoff team. And then for the Clippers, obviously, they are also, like the Lakers, trying to make big moves in the future for free agents, whether it's this summer or probably in 2019. So they get out from under a huge contract. And, of course, they didn't move DeAndre Jordan, so we're going to have to see how that plays out. A lot of people were scared off by DeAndre Jordan's contract demands because they had heard if you're going to bring him in as a trade, he's going to want a ton of money as a free agent. And a lot of people just don't feel like DeAndre Jordan, who's a non-scorer, is worth tying up that much money in your salary cap for a guy who can't shoot.
Mitch Lawrence, SiriusXM NBA Radio. You just said the Pistons are going to probably make the playoffs. If they do, that means Philly or Miami or Indiana would probably not be. Philly is currently in, but they made no moves. And Bryan Colangelo gave just a bizarre press conference. And I don't know if you heard it, but I mean,
what did he say?
The Fultz, the explanation on Fultz, he might be ready to play, but he might not play at all. I mean, just gave you nothing again. I mean, he was supposed to come in because he was going to be transparent.
Well, yeah, it's still an amazing thing to me because I've known Bryan a long time since he was working back in Phoenix way long time ago and then went to Toronto. Now, I've talked to people in the league who know about the Philly situation, and they're like, they're not even dependent on Fultz this year. That's why they were linked to Tyreek Evans. And I thought Tyreek Evans would have been the perfect player for them because he can break a defense down. They really don't have a player on the perimeter who can do that. And I thought it would have been a great move for him. He's having a tremendous year. Obviously, you know his history. He's from the Philly area, Chester. So he didn't get moved at all. I still can't believe. Now, Memphis turned down. I saw they turned down a trade where Denver was looking to bring in Evans and offered Emmanuel Mudiay, who later went to the Knicks in a number 2 pick. I can't believe, Memphis is a team, just to divert for a second, Memphis is a team that has only a couple of tradable pieces like Markelle and Tyreek Evans, and they stood pat. So I don't understand that. But Boston was looking at Evans. We know that. We know Denver was, obviously. I thought he would look good on Philly. I thought in this situation where Philly is trying to make the playoffs and keep the ball rolling, the enthusiasm, everything is pointing north. You bring in a guy like Tyreek Evans, that will allow you to nail down a playoff spot. Now I'm not so sure. We'll see. It's going to ride on, obviously, Embiid, Simmons, J.J. Redick. Those are your primary guys, right? And then we'll see what happens there. And Boston didn't make a move for Evans either. I was a little surprised, although Boston did help themselves by getting Greg Monroe, who, as a bench player, low post scoring threat, really upgrades their situation. They improve themselves there.
Yeah, one of the things he said was they didn't feel they needed to make a move because the final 31 games, apparently they have the easiest schedule in the league. And he looked at that and said, well, we think we can make a run with what we have based on the fact that we are where we are. We're ahead of where we thought we would be. Mm-hmm. And the 31 games left, we've got the easiest schedule in the league.
Well, I mean, you know what? That's one way to look at it if you want. If you want to do that. If I were there and in charge, I would have made a move. I would have definitely done something to bolster that need to getting a guard who can make break the defense down and get to the basket. And Evans is having a superb year. Now, of course, we have to worry about are they going to re-sign him. I don't really care because if I'm running the Sixers, as long as Embiid and Ben Simmons are healthy, and we're going to see what Markelle Fultz is in the future, I don't care about the role guys. I care about the big three. Mm-hmm. And I'll just keep on trying to find people to put in around him who can help me win. So that's a different philosophy. Obviously, I'm not in charge. I would have brought in Tyreek Evans. Now, you ask me what I would have given up. I would have given up a future pick down the line, lottery protected, whatever. But, yeah, Merle, I want to make the playoffs. Yeah. I want to give Philly fans, hey, they just had a Super Bowl in town. Guess what? We're the Sixers. Now the pressure's on us to start getting going on this championship play. No, first of all, you make a playoff run as a developing team. Give people something to be excited about basketball. There's still a lot of negative stuff, Fultz and all this other stuff that's happened in the past. Give them something else. I think Evans would have been a great addition and help them make the playoffs. We'll see what happens over the last 31 games. If they don't, if they don't at full strength, if Embiid is on the floor for most of those games and they can't make the playoffs, well, they misjudged how good they were and the schedule. And, of course, if Embiid gets hurt,
right,
that's another story.
Well, and then another bizarre part of it was, I guess it's not so bizarre now that we've been dealing with it, but 15 minutes in today, he said, oh, by the way, Embiid's questionable for tonight. He hurt his ankle the other day, and he might not play.
I saw that.
I mean, what?
That's the red flag you always raise. And then I also saw, what's this deal with Markelle Fultz's ranges in the paint?
Yep.
Did he have, his shoulder get amputated? What happened to him? And by the way, why is it that Markelle Fultz doesn't say anything?
Well, he was on TNT the other night, which has everybody up in arms saying, well, how the heck did TNT get him to speak? And he hasn't spoken to anybody here.
That's a bad job, but he and his agent. Markelle Fultz, you're in the NBA, you're a professional basketball player. Yes, you can take advice from your team, but you have to be your own man here, and you have to tell people what's going on. That's a bad job by him and a bad job by his agent.
Some of the quick things, I'll just get you a quick, this is from Derek Bodner, who covers the Sixers. He said they still don't know if changing the shot caused the injury or if the injury caused the changed shot.
That's nonsense. He got hurt somewhere along the line.
No timeline, could come back in days or the rest of the season.
Yeah, well, like I said, what I've heard is they decided in the last several weeks he can't help us. Well, if he can't help you this year, that's why you need Tyreek Evans even more.
Right. Has to completely rebuild the muscle memory in his shooting mechanics. Is also
what did he get hit by a truck on Broad Street?
He might have been partying that parade too much yesterday.
Everybody I talk to around the league feel like this guy got some sort of a severe injury that they're not talking about.
Is that what Boston knew? Is that what Boston knew?
I'm sorry?
Is that what Boston knew on draft night?
They weren't taking him anyway. They were never taking. They were always taking Tatum. Tatum, they had rated. They were going to if they couldn't make the pick, they were taking Tatum number one.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't like Josh Jackson. Josh Jackson didn't want to play there, and they knew that Josh Jackson. Danny Ainge wants athletes who can shoot. He's tired. See, Danny Ainge got tired. One of the reasons Danny Ainge broke up his team, he got tired of the Jay Crowders of the world and the Avery Bradleys of the world and the Marcus Smarts who can't make shots. You can only go so far surrounding Isaiah Thomas with guys who can't make shots. So he liked Tatum more than Fultz as a number one pick.
He said there's always a chance that he's going to be out there soon, and there's a chance that he's not going to play this year. I can't answer that question because we don't know how to answer that.
All I can tell you is they're not depending on him at all.
22 minutes. He was there 22 minutes. They were asked if there's a timeline on the next update on Fultz, and he walked away and said the interview is over.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Brian, bad job.
Bad job.
I mean, you know what? I don't know why. Now, this to me, I'm going to blame the owners too, because this is something that must come down from above him. Because if he never acted this way when he was in Toronto or Phoenix, when his father owned and ran the Suns, and when Maple Leaf sports people were his bosses. He never had that type of relationship with the media. So I'm assuming it's Josh Harris and his guys who are telling him to be evasive, and that's a bad job on their part because once again, it's not good for your fans.
Well, and you know what?
And here's the amazing thing, Josh Harris. The Eagles won the Super Bowl. The pressure's on you now, too, to start doing some things.
Well, and you know what? That makes some sense because one of the reasons that Hinkie got pushed out is because he was non-transparent as well. And then they brought Colangelo in. He said, we will always be transparent. He's been worse than Hinkie.
Looks like they changed course there, and that's good. And it's a bad look for the National Basketball Association. If I were Adam Silver, I would not be happy about this at all. I'd be calling up the owners in Philadelphia saying, "What in the world are you guys thinking about?"
NBA columnist Mitch Lawrence, SiriusXM NBA Radio, Sporting News, Forbes, at Mitch_Lawrence, right here on the Sports Bash. Thank you, pal.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it. See you later.